Good morning, everyone. Mr. Maurice Sweet, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism. Mrs. Patricia Boyce Diaz, Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism. Our dear Minister, Dr. Lincoln, the Honorable Douglas, Minister of the Arts and Multiculturalism. Mrs. Ingrid Ryan Ruben, Director of Culture. Other executive and technical staff of the Management of the Arts Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism. The 2014 mentors, Earl Lovelace, Marina Salandi Brown, Joseph Valley, Lindy Ann Rich, and Renee Cummings. The mentors of the 2013 Mentoring by the Masters program, representatives of the Diplomatic Corps, other specially invited guests, members of the media. My name is Odika O'Neill Seaton, and it gives me great pleasure this morning to welcome you all to the launch of the Mentoring of the Masters 2014. The Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism is pleased to host the second installment of this project as we continue our developmental work in the culture sector. Mentoring by the Masters facilitates the transfer of knowledge from senior, accomplished artists to up-and-coming practitioners in the respective fields, honoring these mentors in the process. I would now like to invite the Director of Culture in the Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism, Mrs. Ingrid Ryan Ruben, to bring you the opening remarks. Please welcome her.
Dr. the Honorable Lincoln Douglas, Mr. Maurice Sweet, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism, Ms. Boyce Diaz, Deputy Permanent Secretary, mentors for 2014, mentors for 2013, staff of the Division of Culture, other staff of the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, a very pleasant good morning. For us who work in the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism, this is indeed a wonderful day for us because for the second year running, we have been able to host this program called Mentoring by the Masters. Why Mentoring by the Masters? What is it? When we got our mandate to be to be a major contributor to development of cultural industries, we recognized that our work in the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism had to be developmental. We recognize that there are several agencies, government agencies, that are contributing to development of cultural industries in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, the Ministry of Trade is a major player, so too the Ministry of Planning, the Ministry of Legal Affairs, IP, Intellectual Property, the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Education, and of course the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism. We have been involved in the creative industries. That is a lot of the work that we do is in the culture sector. And we recognize that the role that we must play as we contribute to developing the creative industries is to do the developmental work. What does that mean? We have done a lot of research in reference to what is happening in the sector. Our ministry manages Carnival, and Carnival is a major cultural industry. And what we have observed, the information we have collected over time is that while we have a lot of players in the field, meaning a lot of artists who are trying to hone their craft and to make a living out of their industry, there is need for a lot of the areas to become more professionalized. We have people in Trinidad and Tobago who are masters of their craft. And an important strategy to honing your craft is apprenticeship, is mentorship. All artisans in the world, some of the oldest organizations in the world are artist organizations, are artisan organizations, meaning artisans had apprentices, people who worked with them and learned their craft. And we recognize that this can become a major contributor to developing and honing the craft. And so we conceptualize this program called Mentoring by the Masters as one of our major contributors to developing cultural industries. What is the program intended to do? The intention of the program is to, one, identify mentors, people who have succeeded as in their craft, who have been able to make a living from their craft. That was important to us, that you have been able to make a living from your craft. And then there are a lot of young people out there, young and old and young at heart, who want to make a living from their craft. And so the program is to bring these mentees at the feet of these mentors so that they can provide them with guidance. They can help them to find their feet so that they can make a decision. Do I want to make a living out of this? Do I want to make this my final destination? And for us, important was, how do we find these mentors? Do we decide, wake up one morning and says, well, Earl is the best, so we will choose Earl and we'll ask him if he'll do it. In the first year, the approach we took was, we invited all the national cultural organizations to send us nominations, who they think in their sector can serve as a mentor. And so we laid it at the feet of the Art Society, for example, the National Drama Association, the National Secondary Schools Drama Association. We laid it at their feet. Help us to identify these people. And we did. Last year we got 10 nominees. In fact, we had 5 mentors for the last program. But as the program was implemented, we recognized that there needed to be some tweaking. We needed to reconceptualize our approach. And so this year, we took a new approach. The Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism, in its work in the culture sector, we are focused on 4 main pillars: heritage preservation, development of competencies in the visual, literary, and performing arts, festival development, and I missed the other one. And the development of cultural industries, of course, this one. And so we determined we have objectives to achieve in the ministry. And the work, we decided that, therefore, that under each one of these major pillars for development, we want to look for people who can help us to achieve the objectives under those pillars. And we got nominees for each one of those pillars. And we took these nominees to the assessment committee of the National Registry of Artists and Cultural Workers. We are all aware Trinidad and Tobago has established a national registry of artists and cultural workers. The main objective of that particular registry is not just to get artists to become registered, but to facilitate the gains that could be had, one, from our Act for Philanthropy and the Arts, and of course, 2, access to CSME, and of course, access to under the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union. They require that the persons who access must be part of a national database. The government must say, the nation must say these are bona fide artists. And so the assessment committee, the committee that assesses these people, is a group that represents the creative sector in Trinidad and Tobago. So that, for example, on the assessment committee, you have the Art Society, the National Commission for UNESCO. Also representing the committee is the National Museum. And this committee is chaired by the Director of Culture. The Trinidad and Tobago Publishers and Broadcasters Association are also members of the assessment committee. And so we brought the nominees to this committee that, as far as we could, it represents the creative sector. And this committee selected the persons who today you see are the mentors for 2014. And that's a new process. And we have also introduced inside of the program a new section to the program. So that each one of these people will have a group of mentees working with them over an 80-hour period. And for us, what we try, as we continue to work, we continue to try to hone the process to get to a place where we come to a place where we can provide a program of mentorship program in the creative sector that allows for our young artists, our young artisans, our young people who work in the creative sector to hone their skills, to become better at it. This year, we have people in festival development. We have somebody in publishing as an author, Earl Lovelace. We have one of the areas that we also selected was accompaniment. That's an area where we know that we need a higher level of skill. And so you would see, and so when we were introduced to the masters, you would see this is the areas in which we are working, because we recognize we need to build skill in these areas. I want to say thank you very much to the mentors for agreeing to become part of this program. Thank you very much to the people who are working with them, to ensure that their programs are well implemented. And this year, what we have introduced is a program for professional development. So we have introduced a new aspect to the program where all the mentees come together in one program. And so I want to thank you very much for coming this morning. I hope that when we have a question time, that if you want more information on the program, you'll be able to get that. And so thank you very much. And let us continue to work together to build to do the work we need to do to build our creative industries so that the people of Trinidad and Tobago, our young, very talented people who have genius running in their blood, you know that we do, right? We created these steel pans, so we have genius running in our blood. Let us continue to do the work to bring us to the place where our genius continue to shine. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Director, and I'm really glad that you gave us a full overview of the entire program. I think this has been a challenge for many artists in our country where we don't know how to make our industry a viable one. So I think it's really commendable of the ministry to have this vision. But before vision can actually become reality, you must have the endorsement of our government. So at this time, I would now like to invite the Minister of Arts and Multiculturalism, Dr. the Honorable Lincoln Douglas, to bring you the feature address. Please welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here again at another one of these, of our launch of these mentoring of the Masters program. Our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Maurice Sweet, and our Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Patricia Boyce Diaz, and Ms. Ingrid Ryan Ruben, our Director of Culture, other members of our management staff here at the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism, to our 2014 mentors, Mr. Earl Lovelace, Marina Salandi Brown, Joseph Valley, Lindy Ann Boden Rich, and Renee Cummins, and to our previous mentors from 2013, members of the Diplomatic Corps, all other invited guests. I'm really, really happy that you are here this morning. This mentoring of the Masters to me represents the foundation of a very serious educational principle, as our director mentioned earlier, and that is the concept of apprenticeship. It is something that mass education has not been able to capture, and it's one of the fundamental lacking variable in the passing on of education in our society. Because in the days past, when you were to become a tailor, you would go by Mr. Tailor, and you would learn to sew. And learning to sew and learning to be a tailor isn't only about learning to sew. It is about what are the values and the principles of a tailor. So you become a tailor, meaning you become a person that embodies tailorness, if you want to call it that. And that's the idea of apprenticeship, is that it taught you not only to become, but it also taught you how to be. And so I think this is a tremendous part, especially in the arts and in the cultural industry, where the fundamental principle is learning from the great masters before you. And so we are happy. We are happy that we could bring this project and this concept to the country of Trinidad, to our own country of Trinidad and Tobago. This provides some safeguards that our future would be in good hands, that the next generation of movers and shakers would have the resources, not only in terms of skills, but in terms of the character. For we all know that talent is not enough. Talent abounds in Trinidad and Tobago. You turn around the corner and talent growing out of the concrete, you know. But talent is not enough. One of my advisors in art school, when I went to Columbia College, he used to remind us every so often, it is not the most talented people who succeed, but it is those who are willing to have the discipline, the commitment to adhere, to practice, and to learn, most of all, who don't think that they know everything. You know, you'd have some people, and I had a driver one time, every time I would tell him, when you go around, I know. And very so often we'd be lost, you know. And, you know, these people, as you start talking, and they say, I know. And so the capacity to learn and to follow and to to be disciplined, to become a disciple of. That's what discipline means. Of course, in Trinidad, we use discipline mean to beat somebody, right? But you're talking to be a follower, one who follows instructions and become like a teacher. The Bible says, everyone, when he's fully taught, will be like his teacher. And that's what this process is all about, that people can grow up to be skillful. Now, if you don't have skill, then what you'll be doing is faking it, making a lot of loud noise. And I feel a lot of people faking it and making loud noise in Trinidad. If you read a passage in Ecclesiastes, this is what it says. It says, if the axe is blunt, more strength is needed, but skill will always bring success. In other words, if your axe is sharp, you spend a long time beating down the tree, just making a certain noise, putting out a lot of energy. By the time the tree falls down, you beat it to death. Now you have a lot of people running up and down and making a lot of noise because they haven't learned the skill. It says skill will always bring success. And you only learn skill by practice. First you acquire technical knowledge, and then you practice, because skill is the actual implementing of technical knowledge. And so you could have all the information in your head, but your fingers still have to learn how to do that. There's a different thing between having the knowledge in your head, what we call technical knowledge, and practical knowledge. If your finger and learn to move like this, and that can only come by doing it over and over and over and over again. For example, I play drum and I play drum and recite poetry at the same time. I remember the first time I was trying to do that. Those of you who are a drummer will know how difficult and complicated it is to talk and play the drums at the same time. It took a long time to kind of actually divide your brain in two, and assign this half of the brain to play and assign this half of the brain to talk or something like that, And, but this is what you learn. This is what skill is all about. It's like people who shoot arrows and they tell you have to shoot between breath and between a heartbeat. Now, I don't even know when my heart is beating. But the people who do that, they could slow their heart rate down enough so that they could hear the beat of the heart and shoot the arrow between each beat. And that's what skill is. It's about becoming so familiar with your craft that you could do it with your eye closed. And not only that, you have the technical and the necessary information to back you up. And there are a lot of people who don't feel that they need technical knowledge. As soon as you start talking to them, say, all the academics, all the school people, and they kind of dismiss you with a wave of their hand, And so we are very, very happy that we have this program that could transfer knowledge and know-how from seniors, accomplished artists, cultural workers, to up-and-coming artists in their respective fields. So this program continues to be part of the arsenal that the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism has in terms of delivering quality to Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, we continue to work and support organizations that are doing good work in terms of preparing our artists to go international. We continue to work in the area of regularizing our panyards. We continue to work in the area of bringing more performance spaces to Trinidad and Tobago. And we continue to work in the area of developing our cultural industry. Because we believe that the arts and the culture is the next frontier of capital for the development of Trinidad and Tobago. We make no bones or no joke when we say that culture and the arts will be a significant part of our economic and social development. So this year we have 5 mentors have been selected, and they will spend 80 contact hours with program participants. Workshops will be facilitated in the areas of professional development, and we have Renee Cummings with us. Probably we should give them a round of applause as I call their name. In terms of festival development, we have Marina Salandi Brown. Music accompaniment, Lindy Ann Rich. Heritage preservation through film, Mr. Joseph Ali. and Literary Arts, Mr. Earl Lovelace. And we have areas identified also, I understand, Matura, St. Augustine, Port of Spain, San Fernando. And the director explained that how they were selected through an assessment committee. And so we are clear in our mind in the Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism that our goal, ladies and gentlemen, is that young people would experience, they would know, they would gain the best of the creative knowledge created and that would be passed on to them by innovators in the field. The Ministry of the Arts and Multiculturalism, and by extension, our government, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, continues to invest heavily in the creative and cultural sector. Because as stated in our policy, in our government policy, the cultural environment will free up our citizens for cultural expression, will strengthen national identity without any way stifling individual expression and diversity. So it is my sincerest hope that individuals who participate in the program will seize the opportunity to incorporate the learning they receive in their lives. And in so doing, they will grow to make significant contributions to the sector and to this, our country of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I have always said, the cultural industry is the best opportunity we have to engage the most amount of people from different walks of life in the shortest space of time for the least investment and the best returns. Thank you so much for coming. Bless.
Thank you very much, Minister. I like your analogy that you used this morning about many of us running around making loud noises. I think we're just bluffing, because especially some of us, we hold our talent to our chest and don't really share it with others. But I think that this program is really, it's a blessing for us as nationals, because we get a chance to really allow our mentors to really pass on the trade of their practice. So thank you again, Minister. And we need to thank and acknowledge our mentors of 2013 before we look at the next grouping of mentors for 2014. So at this time, please let us acknowledge each mentor, and I'd ask each mentor to stand after you're introduced. Our first mentor we recognize in alphabetical order, Mr. Errol Ince. Mr. Ince is a music aficionado, contributing to the music landscape of Trinidad and Tobago for 50 years. At age 19, he formed his first band, Errol Ince Music Makers. We want to sincerely thank you, Mr. Ince, for gracing us with your excellence as a mentor in music. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ince. Dr. Kim Johnson is an accomplished journalist, author, researcher, and is recognized as a foremost steel pan historian. His major research achievements include an exhibition entitled The Audacity of the Creole Imagination, staged at the National Museum of Trinidad and Tobago. The exhibit included a 13-minute film, which he scripted and produced. Dr. Johnson has recently been selected as the director of Carnival Institute. This considered, it was his foray into multimedia projects, featuring the steel pan that made him the chosen mentor for writing for film. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for imparting your knowledge and experience as a writer. Ladies and gentlemen, please acknowledge Dr. Kim Johnson. Mr. Krishna Prasad is a highly recognized choreographer and dancer. He is the first person in Trinidad and Tobago to have been awarded a scholarship by the Indian government to study music and dance in India. He is the founder, director, and choreographer of the Trinidad School of Indian Dance, the first of its kind to be established in this part of the world in 1967. Mr. Prasad has traveled internationally representing this country in dance. We thank you, Mr. Prasad, for honoring us with your expertise and master of the art. Dr. Rodney Ramjit is a professional industrial artist who applies his craftsmanship to the creation of props for Ramleela. Today, Mr. Ramjit holds the office of President of the National Ramleela Council of Trinidad and Tobago. In 2001, the National Ramleela Council of Trinidad and Tobago was established to bring unity and organization to Ramleela groups and Ramleela celebrations throughout the country. He has worked diligently to ensure that this aspect of our culture is developed and celebrated. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mr. Ramjit, for applying your commitment to the traditional art form as the mentor of Ramleela costume design and construction. Mr. Zeno Constance is a prolific playwright with a career that catalogs 20 award-winning plays. Although he has numerous plays and books in his portfolio, Mr. Constance continues to produce work to this day, and he shows no sign of letting up. His books include another career biography of Calypso icon Brother Valentino, entitled Poet and Prophet, 1984, Tassa, Chutney and Soca, 1991, which outlines the East Indian contribution to the Calypso art. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's acknowledge and thank Mr. Constance. Trinidad and Tobago applauds the work of all our cultural icons, and we thank you again. And this year, as we prepare to now honor the participation of 5 cultural icons in the mentoring of the Masters Project, I would like to ask all of this year's mentors to make your way to the front of the room after you've been introduced, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, our masters, our mentors for 2014 are Mr. Earl Lovelace, an award-winning novelist, playwright, and short story writer. Mr. Lovelace will mentor participants in literary arts. Thank you for being with us, sir. Mr. Joseph Valley, a director, executive producer, and lecturer, will share his expertise in the area of heritage preservation through film. Ms. Lindy-Ann Rich is lauded as the doyen of the country's accompanists. Ms. Rich will share her knowledge with eligible musicians in the area of music accompaniment. Welcome. Ms. Marina Salandi Brown is a journalist, broadcaster, cultural activist, and founder of the globally recognized Bocas Lit Fest. Ms. Salandi Brown will mentor in festival development. Ms. Salandi does send her apologies for not being present today, as she's out of the country at this time. And finally, and definitely my pleasure, to introduce Ms. Renee Cummins. She is an experienced consultant, criminal psychologist, rehabilitation specialist, and journalist. Ms. Cummins will apply her wealth of experience to mentoring all participants in this year's program in professional development. Please, let's have a full round of applause for all our mentors here for 2014. And we thank you all for your invaluable contribution to this project. At this time, we'd now like to ask our Honorable Minister, Permanent Secretary, Deputy Permanent Secretary, and Director of Culture to stand and take an opportunity to have a photo opportunity with our mentors. I invite you to come forward, please. I'll call Ms. Roston to coordinate this part of our program.
What's that?
So maybe you could make. So while we wait on our ministry executives to take their places, we would like to, at this time, say a heartfelt thank you to all. So while our ministry executives take their place, we'd just like to say thank you to all involved for today. We'd like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending our project launch this morning, and we invite you to participate and to partake in some refreshments before you leave. We may also be asking some of you for your comments as well about the program during our morning proceedings here as well.
My Trinidad. fire that burns so bright, dedicated to everything that's right. Keep unity and equality in La Trinity.
It's one heart, one soul, so brave, so bold. We building stronger, growing together. We climbing higher and we reaching further. It's one heart, one soul.
This land is my land and my legacy. Our forefathers and foremothers fought vehemently, united so that we stand independently.